Felix was born on November 10th, 1999, in the town of Viseu, Portugal. João's parents had nothing to do with football. Both were physical education teachers, but like many Portuguese, they were fans of football and dreamed of raising children who would participate in the most popular sport in the world. The couple had two sons, Hugo and João. The first did not become a big footballer, but he managed to play for the Benfica youth team. João started playing football at the local club Pestinas in 2007, and just a year later, the young player was spotted by Porto. Being lured to such a big club was an important step in my career, João said, but it was very difficult for me to combine studies and training because the trips from Viseu to Porto took too much time. At that moment, I thought about quitting football, but my dad convinced me not to give up. His father worked very hard so that Felix could devote time to football. Viseu is 240 kilometers from Porto, but Felix Sr. regularly took his son to training in his car. In 2011, João moved to Porto to live near the club's training base. For a child who was strongly attached to his family, moving to a boarding school was a very strong blow. João did not achieve great success on the field either, so in 2014, Porto sent Felix on loan to Padroense. At the end of the season, the player was told that he was no longer expected back. Porto explained this by Felix's short stature, although the Portuguese himself denied this several times, claiming that he left on his own. That same summer, Benfica took João in. By that time, Felix had matured. João scored 3 times in the championship. And in the same season, Felix also participated in the UEFA Youth League, where he helped the club reach the final of the tournament. Despite the fact that Benfica lost the trophy to Salzburg, Felix became one of the main discoveries of this tournament, scoring 6 goals. A year of convincing performances for the reserve, João was transferred to the first team of Benfica. In August 2018, the Portuguese made his debut in a match against Boavista, and a week later scored his first goal for Benfica in the 1/4 final of the Portuguese Cup. Felix got a little lucky. Facundo Ferreira and Nicolas Castillo were in terrible form, and Jonas was out due to injury, so the newly appointed head coach Bruno Lage began using João together with Hari Seferovic, and this yielded results. Felix gave bright matches, and in April, he personally executed Eintracht in the Europa League, scoring a hat-trick. Needless to say, he became the youngest player to score 3 goals in a single Europa League match. At that moment, João was 19 years and 152 days old. Felix finished his first full season in professional football with a monstrous 20+11 in goal plus assist statistics. In the 7 best European leagues, this result was the second among players under 21. Only Kai Havertz and Jadon Sancho scored more. To say that Felix caused a stir is to say nothing. By the end of the season, the Portuguese had become a coveted prize for half of Europe's top clubs. It was obvious that João would not stay at Benfica, but many teams were scared off by the €120 million price tag. Atletico took the risk, paying even more. Madrid promised to pay €126 million for Felix, but in installments, €30 million immediately, the rest over several years. The club shook hands, and João was happy to join Atletico. I really wanted to play for one of the best teams in the world, and Atletico is among them. I hope I can adapt quickly and show myself at my best. Atletico was truly making a serious bet on the player. He became the most expensive footballer under 21 after Mbappe, and received the number 7 shirt in the club, recently vacated by Antoine Griezmann. Everything screamed that Atletico would replace the genius Frenchman with João. As would often happen in Felix's future career, the Portuguese started brightly at his new club. In his debut match against Getafe, João earned a penalty, though our old good acquaintance Alvaro Morata could not convert it. But this did not stop Atletico from winning. Felix opened his personal scoring account the very next week, giving an assist to Vitolo against Leganes. A week later, the first goal happened. Eibar suffered, and Moscow Lokomotiv also suffered. In October, Felix became the youngest Atletico player to score in the Champions League. But the bright debut was overshadowed by an injury in mid-October. Dani Parejo twisted the Portuguese's ankle in a tackle. Atletico even had to finish the match with 10 men because Simeone had already made all his substitutions. Felix missed about a month. November was primarily a media event for João. He became the second Portuguese in history to receive the Golden Boy Award, and in December, he ended up in 28th place in the Ballon d'Or voting. However, all this hype and a bright start to the season did not help Felix secure a spot in the starting 11. Moreover, Simeone spent a long time trying to figure out where to put João. The Portuguese played as either a right winger or a second striker. A big problem was the style of the Argentine coach. Forwards at Atletico had to actively press. João did not always understand what was expected of him and sometimes started to seem like a lazy player who did not want to do anything without the ball. The press gleefully savored Felix's problems, and Marca immediately listed João as one of the main flops of the season. In January, he made his debut in the Spanish Super Cup and Kings Cup, but at the end of the month, Felix was injured again and was out for another month. He returned in February, and in mid-March, he assisted Llorente in the 1-8 final second leg of the Champions League against Liverpool, which helped the team advance. However, the next day, football went into lockdown due to the coronavirus pandemic. In August, the Champions League returned. Felix earned a penalty in the quarter-final against Leipzig and converted it himself, but it wasn't enough. The Germans went through 2-1. On that, the season, in essence, ended. The following year, when Atletico won their first La Liga title in 7 years, became the breakthrough. Felix started the season brightly, scoring in both the Champions League and the league. In the first half of the football year, it was often João who carried the team, and Atletico pulled far away from their pursuers in the championship. But at the beginning of February, Felix caught the coronavirus, and the team's overall form fell and fell. In the 1-8 final of the CL, the team got that very Chelsea side of Thomas Tuchel, against whom Simeone's team could do nothing. And in May, the championship was under threat, but it was Felix who provided the assist for Renan Lodi's winning goal on May 16th against Osasuna, which allowed Atletico to retain the top spot. Felix, in fact, had declined significantly even before the coronavirus. In November, in a match against Bayern, João received an injury that didn't seem serious at first glance, since the Portuguese quickly returned to action, but in reality, everything was more complicated. I had a stress fracture in my foot. The doctor said that I could play, but it would be better to have surgery. I refused to go to the infirmary because I felt that I could help the team, so I decided that I would play with the injury until the end of the season. It was obvious that the injury was restricting Felix's movement. He finished the season with 7+6 in the league, which, considering everything mentioned above, seems like a very decent result. João returned to the matches in the 21-22 season only in September, replacing the prodigal son Antoine Griezmann in the second half. In the next match, Felix, no, he didn't score the winning goal, was sent off for calling the referee crazy, and on top of that, a 2-match ban. But after this incident, João improved significantly. 2 assists against Barca, an assist against Liverpool, a goal contribution against Sociedad, a goal against Betis. In October, Felix became the player of the month by a wide margin. In the Portuguese's career, nothing can happen in a consistently positive way. A month later, João received a minor injury and then began to conflict with Simeone. Diego began to play Felix less, after which the player went to the media and said, "We all understand what is happening." At the next press conference, Simeone shrugged. "If he understands what is happening, I would like to hear his point of view, because I have no idea what it's about." Apparently, the situation angered João, and he improved significantly in the second half of the season. At the end of February, in the first leg of the Champions League knockout stage, Manchester United suffered, and then the Portuguese produced a powerful series of 6 matches in which he scored 6 goals and gave 2 assists. After such, La Liga boldly gave João the Player of the Month award for March. But in mid-April, Felix again received a minor injury to his hamstring. Despite the early end to the season, the fans recognized João as the player of the season at Atletico. In the league, Felix finished with 10+6. Disagreements with Simeone did not go away, however. In the first round of the 22-23 season, Felix provided 3 goal assists and then disappeared. Simeone defined João as the 5th forward in the team, after Angel Correa, Antoine Griezmann, Alvaro Morata, and Matthias Cunha. Simeone explained it this way: "I don't care how much this or that player cost us. I choose the squad solely based on good intentions for the team. Whoever is better prepared plays. If Felix regains his former form, he will get a place in the starting lineup. But for that, he needs to try harder." The Portuguese finally decided to break relations with Atletico after Simeone sent Felix to warm up several times in an October match against Brugge, but never brought him onto the field. After the match, according to insider rumors, João asked his agent Jorge Mendes to find him a new team. During the World Cup in Qatar, the CEO of Atletico confirmed that the club was ready to sell the player. "Felix was the biggest bet our club has ever made. He is a world-class player, but his relationship with the coach, his playing time, and his motivation make one doubt that he will be useful to us. I consider it reasonable to analyze options for exiting this situation. I would like him to stay, but the decision is up to the player." In the January transfer window, Arsenal was cautiously interested in Felix, but Atletico wanted to receive €11 million for a half-year loan, which seemed like madness. However, the owners of Chelsea found the sum reasonable, and already on January 11th, Felix was flaunting in the Londoner's shirt. The debut took place the next day. João was bright and strove to show himself, but the player clearly overdid it, flying into a harsh tackle, for which he received a ban. In the very first game after the disqualification, João scored a goal against West Ham. The Portuguese's successes, however, were becoming an increasingly rare sight, and Frank Lampard, who replaced Potter, was not as active in putting the Portuguese in the starting lineup. Chelsea's management was long in doubt whether to extend Felix's loan for another season, because the €70 million requested by Atletico at the time was a sum the club definitely did not want to pay. They decided to abandon the idea altogether, and the club's new coach, Mauricio Pochettino, supported the management in the idea not to extend João's stay at the bridge. Felix returned to Atletico, but with a clear understanding that he no longer wanted to play for the Madrid side. In mid-July, he gave an exclusive interview to Fabrizio Romano, saying that he only dreams of Barcelona. "I would like to play for Barcelona. This club has always been my first choice, and I would like to join the Catalans. Being a Barcelona player is my childhood dream. If it happens, then my dream will come true." In Atletico, such a statement, to put it mildly, was not appreciated. The player did not play a minute in the preseason, and the club began to discuss options for his departure. The number 7 returned to Griezmann, and Al Hilal was ready to take Felix on a year-long loan. Barcelona was also in no hurry to sign Felix after his fiery speeches, but after the failed transfer of Bernardo Silva and an unsuccessful attempt to bring back Neymar, they finally turned their gaze towards him. In September, the Catalan club took the rebel on a season-long loan after Felix agreed to extend his contract with Atletico until June 2029 and reduced his wage demands. A couple of days later, João's debut took place, and a week later, the Portuguese scored his first goal, netting against Betis from a tight angle. Felix was very happy with his freedom from Atletico. "I am so happy to play, happy to be back in the starting lineup after a long time. It's a very pleasant feeling. It is so easy to play at Barcelona." In mid-September, João debuted for Barca in the Champions League and celebrated it with a brace and an assist against Antwerp, becoming the man of the match. And then a drought happened. Felix could not find the back of the net for 11 matches, but he was able to score an incredibly important goal. At the end of November, João sent the winning goal into the net against Porto, which helped Barcelona reach the knockout stages of the CL. In early December, Felix's goal brought Barca a victory over Atletico Madrid. João also scored in the return match on March 17th and became the first Catalan player who managed to defeat Atletico in 2 matches of the season since Lionel Messi. True, the second half of the season for Felix went downhill again. In January, he received an injury, and after returning to action, he appeared less and less in the starting lineup. There were rumors that the loan agreement with Atletico included a mandatory buyout clause if Felix played a certain number of minutes in La Liga. Whether this is true, we will never know. But Barcelona did not keep João. There were many problems with finances, and the second part of the season clearly did not convince the Catalan club. Felix returned to Atletico, and Simeone stated that he was ready to accept João back, despite what he had said a year earlier. João showed himself well in the preseason, but then a transfer option to Chelsea unexpectedly appeared. The Londoners really needed to sell Gallagher, and the deal with Samuel Morodion fell through due to doubts about the striker's health. Jorge Mendes quickly proposed the transfer of João to Chelsea to all parties. Felix was fired up by the idea, and a little later, the clubs finally shook hands, arranging a player swap. Connor went to conquer La Liga, and where he managed to bag 7 goals and 4 assists in secondary competitions. Yet, in the Premier League, he was rarely trusted as a guaranteed starter, frequently limited to late second-half cameos. This frustrating spell brought his total Chelsea track record across both stints to a modest 13 goals in all competitions. It became the final tipping point, proving to Felix that remaining a rotational luxury player in Europe was no longer enough, ultimately clearing the path for his blockbuster transfer to Al Nassr. The move to Al Nassr looked like a golden cage at first, but it quickly turned into the ultimate redemption arc for João Félix. In the 2025-2026 season, the Portuguese attacker completely dominated the Saudi Pro League, showing the world the elite standard he was always meant to reach. Stepping onto the pitch in 33 league matches, Felix became the absolute focal point of the team's offense alongside Cristiano Ronaldo. He finished the campaign with an incredible tally of 20 goals and 13 assists, orchestrating plays and destroying defensive lines with ease. His dazzling performances did not go unnoticed. Felix was officially crowned the Saudi Pro League Player of the Season, finally adding a league title and a major individual accolade to his name after years of instability in Europe. He proved that his talent wasn't gone, it just needed the right environment to flourish. Yet, the story took a completely different turn when the domestic season ended and the 2026 FIFA World Cup began. Arriving at the tournament in the form of his life, boasting nearly 33 goal contributions for Al Nassr, Felix faced a harsh reality check with the Portugal national team. In their opening group stage match against DR Congo, the player who had just conquered Saudi Arabia found himself completely sidelined, left as an unused substitute. The decision to bench Felix sparked massive controversy in the media, with fans and pundits questioning how one of Portugal's most effective in-form attackers could be left on the bench during the most crucial matches on the global stage. Felix did eventually get his minutes on the pitch, starting in the heavy round of 16 clash against Spain. He played 71 minutes before being substituted, showing tactical discipline, completing accurate passes, and winning crucial duels. However, Portugal ultimately suffered a painful 0-1 defeat, exiting the tournament much earlier than expected. For João, the World Cup became a bittersweet mirror of his entire career. Individual excellence and undeniable numbers, followed by sudden managerial distrust and the cold reality of national team politics. It was a reminder that no matter how hard he fought, some narratives were completely out of his control. Looking back at the entire saga of João Félix, his journey is a modern football tragedy wrapped in a story of ultimate resilience. He went from a €126 million teenager carrying the weight of the world at Atlético Madrid to a nomadic loanee at Chelsea and Barcelona before finally finding his peace and purpose in Riyadh. At 26 years old, Felix is no longer the fragile boy who allowed tactical systems or demanding managers like Diego Simeone to break his spirit. He has proved his critics wrong by showing that when given absolute trust and a defined role, he remains a world-class footballer capable of putting up monstrous statistical seasons. The narrative that he was a lazy or unmotivated luxury player has been completely shattered by his consistency and dominance on the pitch. So, what lies ahead for João Félix? His contract with Al Nassr runs until the summer of 2027, and he has clearly found a comfortable home in Saudi Arabia, surrounded by elite peers and playing under a manager who relies heavily on his creative vision. While European elite clubs will always monitor a player of his caliber, Felix has achieved something far more valuable than European prestige. He found consistency, happiness, and respect. The next chapter of his career will likely see him cement his legacy in the Middle East, leading Al Nassr to continental glory in the AFC Champions League, and proving that greatness isn't defined by the continent you play in, but by the impact you leave on the pitch. The journey was long and painful, but João Félix finally wrote his own happy ending.